Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our MPF webinar for February 2021. We are glad you're here, and we've got a really, I think, an interesting and exciting panel highlighting women in leadership within the legal profession. And I'm joined by Sharon Abrahams, who's co-hosting. Hi, Sharon. She's in Miami, where it's, what, a balmy 52 this afternoon or something crazy like that?
It's beautiful here today, but it did get to the 40s, so we were chilly.
Well, thank you for pinch hitting for Uri. Uri will be back in March, but Sharon, delighted to have you on board as our co-host this afternoon. As well, we have Lisa Cole. Lisa is the leader of a firm in Nashville, Tennessee-based firm. She's in Nashville, about 115 lawyers. And Lisa's been running the show there for about 10 years. So, Lisa, we are delighted to have you with us this afternoon.
Great to be here, John. Thank you.
And great to have you. And last but certainly not least is Leslie Packer. And Leslie is the managing partner of a 35-lawyer boutique firm, commercial real estate litigation, based in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. Satellite office in Greensboro, and Leslie's been running the show for 7 years at Ellis Winters.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here.
Thank you, ladies. And in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started looking at our attendees rolling in. We had about 140 folks registered for today's topic, which we have named Women in Leadership Tips from the Trenches. And this is a really, really important topic. And we are glad you're here this afternoon to join us. And depending on the feedback we're getting, this is a topic that we will likely present in the future, perhaps as a virtual conference or more webinars featuring women in law firm leadership. And I am showing that y'all can't see our screen. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct. We're not seeing the screen.
Bear with me here.
So while John is looking at the screen, you all should be able to see a red box with an arrow in it. This is for our listening audience. If you click on that, you will be able to see the question box. And if you hit the little arrow, you'll be able to type in questions. And I will be monitoring the questions. So please, any question that you would like to ask, and I will jump in and either interrupt because it's so important, or hold them till we get many of them, and then I will ask our panelists to address them.
Well, let me go through. I am trying to get my technology squared away, and I apologize, everyone. Normally, I'm pretty good with this stuff, but not today. There we go. Okay, so technology's great until it's not working. Here's Sharon. Sharon's recently started a consultancy called Legal Talent Advisors, and we've known each other for 30 years. Director of Practice Development at a handful of AmLaw 100 firms, working with young lawyers, young partners, associates to help them develop their skill sets beyond law to be effective counselors in this day and age. So Sharon, we are delighted you are here. Most of you guys know me. I've been presenting the Managing Partner Forum for a while after a couple of in-house stints with law firms. And I wanted to dedicate today's session to a colleague of ours, Leslie and Lisa. I wasn't sure if you knew Karen Mackay, but she's been on our faculty for a number of years, and she passed last month. Yeah, it was rather sudden, actually, and she's been a recognized leader in Canada and came up through the ranks at Goodman & Carr, big Toronto-based law firm. And her consultancy was called Phoenix Legal, and we wanted to pay her tribute as a pioneer within the business of law and women in the business of law. So thank you, Karen. It was great to know you, and we're pleased and honored to dedicate today's program to you. We've had to pivot here in 2021, like everybody else, to offer more virtual programming. And hopefully we'll get some in-person conferences under our belts this year. Time will tell. but we're still holding some dates, May 5 and 6 for our signature event in Atlanta. We'll make a formal decision early March if we're going to carry forth or try to reschedule, cancel that thing some way, somehow. And a fall symposium, that's something we've introduced in recent years that's been really popular, where we drill down on a topic. And women in leadership might be a good topic to drill down on this coming fall or at a future fall program. 140 people registered. People love our benchmarking data. We'll give you plenty of that. We've got some polling questions that we'll pause and ask along the way. And as Sharon mentioned, there's a chat feature here. And as we go through the session, if there's questions for our panel, please type them in there. We'll do the best we can to sort through them and answer as much as we can in our hour today. Our next webinar will be next month, March 3rd, a Wednesday. Stay tuned. We're going to ask for topics, recommendations for speakers as we come out of today's program. So let us know what you think. Lisa Cole. Lisa, I think we've had the pleasure to know each other for, what, 15 years maybe?
Right, absolutely.
Maybe longer. But I've always admired Lisa as a woman leader and what's been traditionally a male-dominated profession in the South yet, Tennessee. And there's a little bit about Lisa's background, very involved in the ABA Tennessee Bar Glass Ceiling Initiative at the Tennessee Bar, Lawyer Wellbeing Committee. Lisa, welcome. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our audience about you and your background?
No, John, I'm just thrilled to be here. I've worked with you and Sharon at my firm. So, you know, a shameless plug for both of you. You two have a wealth of knowledge. And this is a topic that I'm really passionate about. I am really passionate about diversity and women in the law and attorney well-being. So just happy to share any insight that I have today.
Well, and Lisa, thank you. And this is one of the things that I think folks love about our forum is the willingness of folks to share. It's not easy leading lawyers. And so I call it the loneliness of leadership. So to have a community of managing partners, we're not alone. Many of us are dealing with the same challenges, as well as Leslie Packer. And if you look at Leslie's biographical profile, it just screams leadership. Look at these organizations to which Leslie has been a leader, and 7 years at the helm of Ellis Winters, Special Olympics, fantastic. Leslie, welcome. And anything we don't see here in your biographical profile that you'd like folks to know before we kick off our conversation?
No, I'm going to be saying this a lot today, but I just want to echo what Lisa said. And I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, and thanks to both of you for your willingness to prepare and present and be a part of today's program. When folks registered, I compiled this a little earlier this morning, 136 managing partners weighing in on a handful of questions. We keep them simple. What are the percentage of women lawyers at your law firm? And in only 11% of the firms on today's call do we see majority women among the total lawyer population. 12%, I should say. Then we took it up the food chain a little bit, equity partners. And in only 6% of firms on today's call, the majority of equity partners, women. A lot of work to be done here within the legal profession to advance women and minorities, and that's what we're here to talk about. Another question we asked is, has your firm ever had a woman managing partner? And Leslie, you were surprised to see this result. Why?
I was surprised, John. I was pleasantly surprised that it was as high as it is. I thought it would be a lower percentage than that, at least certainly based on my experience in North Carolina. I would venture to say it's not that high here, but that was a pleasant surprise to see that so many firms had a woman managing partner.
Lisa, did this survey result in any way surprise you?
It did, just like Leslie. I was absolutely shocked. I would have thought it would have been maybe half of 37%. So I was delighted to see that, and I hope that that's going to translate into more female equity partners and, a greater percentage of women in firms overall. So I'm looking at this as good news.
I was talking to our colleague Larry Richard about, psychology of leadership and such, and he thought now is a particularly interesting time, given all the uncertainty, the change. Firms are feeling anxious, and now the skill sets that women might bring to this leadership role might be particularly appropriate and valued, given the uncertainty. So interesting thoughts as we get rolling. We also like to put live polling questions in, and this is the first of 4 that we will be asking. And if you would, mostly for the benefit of Lisa and Leslie, tell us how many lawyers are at your firm. And we'll give folks a few minutes to weigh in. This is kind of our play question. And then we'll head to the races and invite Lisa and Leslie to start us off here. And I'm looking at about 80% of the votes in. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been doing some vote counting in recent months. So let me go ahead and close this poll and share with our group here today the firm sizes on today's call. A lot of mid-sized firms, looks like. Not too many of the big boys, not too many of firms fewer than 10, but that'll give you a sense of who's on our call today. And with that, let me go ahead and invite my friend Lisa Cole to kick us off for about 4 or 5 minutes.
Great, John. Why don't you go to the next slide if you don't mind? Just wanted to tell you a little bit more about my firm, and I also love seeing that most of the folks here today are in a firm of up to 50. John knows that my firm merged with a firm in Memphis about 7 years ago, and John was friends with that firm as well. So I've also been the managing partner of a firm that was just up to 50 lawyers, and then now we've grown in those years up to 115 lawyers. 30% of our shareholders are women, and we have 30% of our equity shareholders, I should say, are women. And we have a compensation formula, another plug for John. He helped us with our latest iteration of that, and any tweaks we needed. But it really is gender neutral, as John knows. It weighs collections, originations, and then we've got some nice subjective categories that we've built into it, so we can balance things out if we need to help our women with flexibility. Our firm has been led by a woman for 25 years. So we were, I'm fortunate that we were out ahead in that space, being women led. And I think that's probably been easier for me, quite honestly, an experience that maybe Leslie did not have, and she can speak to that. But, I'm well aware of the obstacles. John, you can move forward. We all know our clients are demanding diversity, and that includes gender diversity. I've been a little concerned over the past few years that women, whether they're women of color or white women, are being overlooked. And we haven't reached the level that we need to for women yet. So I'm delighted that clients are recognizing that. We all know that 50% or more of our law graduates are women. We just have to hang on to those women. And the key to that, which my firm has always done, is flexibility for women. And we like to say we kind of pass around that flexibility to our young women as needed when they have children, or our young men. I'm still trying to encourage some of my young fathers to take our paternity leave benefits and to work flexible hours, but we all know that women need it. John, move to the next slide. We have got to keep up our
This is a great slide here, by the way, Leslie. I really like the way this captures some of the trends
Yes.
going on out there.
It is, and I have to take my glasses down to see the numbers, but you guys can see the statistics of how women drop out of the ranks and the percentages decrease. And so, we have to get to the heart of the matter and figure out how to hang on to these young women so they don't throw in the towel early on in their career. Next, John, or do you want to comment on that at all, that statistic?
Well, I mean, we have been reading since the 70s. I used to like to say, darn close to half of the folks coming out of law schools have been women.
Right.
But as you move up the chain, fewer and fewer as they become associates, equity partners, leaders, and many opt out of the profession, opt to start a family. Back when I was a little kid, my dad was a lawyer and my mom was a stay-at-home housewife. And we didn't see much of that. And most young lawyers aren't quite wired that way, it seems to me. You talked about men and women who have shifted priorities a bit.
Right. And it's tough. I'm married to a lawyer in a really large law firm. He's at Baker Donaldson. My kids have been raised by two lawyers, God bless them. One, my oldest is starting law school next year.
You didn't talk them out of it, huh, Lisa?
I didn't. I tried, but no, not really. I have absolutely loved my journey, but it's been a real collaboration, and we've got to recognize when we need help to be able to keep our career. These are some interesting comments that I have received from 3 different clients in the past 2 weeks. The top one there, half the partners leading our matters, half the team as a whole should be diverse. And clients are becoming very serious about this. And then I grabbed a quote from a former general counsel at Ford, who's now at Coca-Cola, who has just, you all may have seen them, release some new diversity requirements that at least 30% of the billing of a file needs to be worked on by a diverse attorney. And women can fill these roles.
And that's been all over the Atlanta paper. In fact, Sunday's business section did a whole thing on Coca-Cola and its diversity initiatives, particularly within the legal department and hiring outside counsel.
Right. Very important.
So I think it's very real. We're just not talking about it. It's real, and clients are monitoring and insisting.
Right. And it's a shame that it's taken clients to really push the issue with us, but if it helps us, break through that glass ceiling, then we'll take it. And I'd like to say that sponsorship and mentorship for women is very important, and those are different things. Sponsorship is someone with influence that can really be an advocate and a champion for a single woman or the group of women. And then mentorship is just somebody that, I tell all my young attorneys, when you start practicing, find someone that you want to be like in 10 years and make them your mentor. Watch them, learn from them, emulate them. And so that's the importance of having a mentor in that role.
Sharon, you've done a lot of professional development with young lawyers over the years, young women and diverse lawyers. What say you about sponsorship, mentorship, and these sorts of concepts?
Well, I like the way Lisa defined it. They are actually extremely different. And a mentor actually could be, yes, to what Lisa's point, but a mentor could be someone who's just a year ahead of you. A mentor is really just someone who's going to help you figure out how to do your job, to gain the skills that you need. Believe it or not, a staff person can mentor you too, especially if you do litigation, your litigation support people. So a mentor really just helps you get the skills that you need, but a sponsor is the one that's going to help you with your career and the success that you're going to be able to achieve. And that's really the critical piece. And I want to make sure that I'm going to come back to the issue that Lisa talked about with a percentage of people who have to do the work on a matter. We'll come back to that after Leslie's given her orientation to what she's going to talk about, because I don't want that to go away, because there's a problem with that. I mean, it's a good request, but we have a problem fulfilling it.
You know, another thing I want to make sure we get on today is this notion that Lord knows we're trying to achieve more diversity. We're trying to promote and get women more involved in our firm, but we're having a hard time getting traction. Folks leave, and we're trying. How do we kind of get over the hump if we don't have role models, you know, currently in our firm? And I'd like to touch on that, you know, how we achieve that. Leslie, let's shift the spotlight over to you now and have you impart a few thoughts, and then we'll open up the floor.
Okay, thank you, John. This is one of my favorite quotations about leadership from Martin Luther King Jr. And I believe in this. I believe that an effective leader is somebody who is looking to mold consensus. And John, if you could go to the next slide. When a leader is working on molding consensus, there can be different perceptions about what that leader is doing based on his or her gender. The same actions when taken by a male leader can be viewed very positively, as evidenced by the adjectives and descriptive terms on the left, and can be viewed less positively when taken by a woman. So that's as evidenced by the words on the right. So that's an obstacle that we face and that we have to figure out how to overcome when we're serving in our roles as leaders. John, can you move to the next slide?
You know, I look at these words, Leslie, it just reminds me, you know, Hillary Clinton and all that she was subject to in her run for presidency. Those words that may have not been ascribed to a man.
Exactly. We've already talked, Lisa's talked about the path to equity partner and how just the pool of women diminishes, and it diminishes even further when you get to the pool of people to be considered for leadership positions. There are other obstacles along the way, and I'm not going to focus only on the negative. I want to talk about some of the solutions as well. But, you know, there are perceptions about us as women based on our attire. We tend to be judged on those factors. Things that we do, hair, things that we do.
Hey, stop with the hair jokes.
Okay. Things that we do may be viewed as a choice in favor of work-life balance for women, whereas they would not be viewed in from the same prism when the same action is undertaken by a male. We may be perceived as perhaps not able to be tough, not able to make tough decisions or deliver tough messages. And then I think there are other factors that women tend to be judged on that men are not. If you just look at the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation hearing and how many comments were made about her voice as being shrill or high-pitched or babyish. So that's another factor that we have to deal with. Now, not to say that you shouldn't pay attention to it if your voice needs to be modulated to be an effective communicator, but these are just some of the things that are noted about women. Next slide, John.
You know, we were talking about dress. I don't know if we want to pause at all here, Leslie and Lisa and Sharon. Talk about dress and how you package and present. And you know, we men have it easy. You know, you pick a suit and a tie, and we don't have to think too much about it. Women, on the other hand, have many more options. And what advice would you put to a young woman trying to ascend that ladder and crack that glass ceiling in terms of just dress and presentation? Leslie, I'll start with you on that one, just in a few words.
Well, professional, of course, and appropriate to the occasion, but as you said, there's so many more choices. I mean, for men, it's the coat and tie, or as John, you're modeling for us today, the navy jacket and button-down shirt. You look at all the comments about the inauguration on who was wearing what and what it symbolized. It can be a distraction, but I think we have to keep in mind when we're, as litigators, certainly, we're always representing our client. So the clothing can't be a distraction. It can't be something
we overcompensate as a woman trying to be taken seriously? You can
make it, as we did when we first started practicing 35 years ago. almost like an imitation of a male, suit. The skirt suit with a little bow tie, which is also not. I think it needs to be something that feels comfortable, that is professional, but that is not a distraction.
Right.
Leslie, anything that you might add to that?
Lisa. Leslie just answered.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
That's okay. We answer to both names, so no problem.
Right.
Well, Sharon loves to correct me, so
Right. One thing we've done in my firm is I've actually hired a consultant to present a Dress for Success seminar for my young lawyers, because as Leslie said, there's so many choices for women and men these days. And, with social media, people, I think, are becoming less and less professional, so to speak, in their attire. So I have found finding a local consultant who can really come in and demonstrate, what not to wear, so to speak, that we used to see in some of the magazines, has been very helpful for my young lawyers.
Sharon, did you get into any of this stuff, your training and development of young lawyers at the big firms?
Oh, 100%. You have to, and to the point that both Leslie and Lisa said, because women have so many choices, they don't necessarily know which one is the best one to move them forward. But what happens in the diverse world, and even outside of gender diversity, is what you wear says a lot about how you think of yourself. And so we would tell the women who started, the brand new baby lawyers, if you wear a sweater set, people are going to think you're the new paralegal. And so you need to wear a suit to work so that everyone knows that you're a lawyer. Unfortunately, we'd also have to say that to our African-American male attorneys, that you need to wear a suit. Otherwise, unfortunately, you're the new file clerk. And it's sad. It's really sad that we would have to do that. But I think that's been going on for more than 30 years. And as I think Leslie said when we were talking, Sue said, who was on our call the other day, you have to dress for the part that you want. So even the baby lawyers need to understand that they have to dress like a partner so that everyone who they work with sees them. Now that's when we're in the office. When we're on virtual, you still need to dress the part. Because if you come to your meetings, your firm meetings with a hoodie on, everybody knows you're the attorney, but what kind of respect is that showing for your firm leaders that you're coming to meetings with hoodies and things like that on?
Nobody said it was fair. Nobody said it was fair, but it is what it is, and people size you up real fast on what they see. It's been said less than a second. I'm already creating impressions of you, and you haven't opened your mouth yet. So packaging and presenting yourself. When I was in the business school at University of Virginia, we did a whole semester on presentation, from speaking to dress to the whole gamut, so that people do take you seriously and you present effectively. Really important, and probably more so for women. It may not be fair. I remember years ago, Sharon, working with a firm in Miami, and one of their young associates, a male, a Latin lawyer, was very stylish, too stylish, would argue the senior partners, who thought he looked too Hollywood. To engender trust and confidence in clients, or show up in the judge's office, in the courtroom. Leslie, we got a little off track there, but
sure,
we're back at you.
Moving on from obstacles to successes, I think things have improved. We were chatting before we went live today. Public acceptance of women in important roles. This is a Halloween costume. Modeled after an octogenarian Supreme Court justice. So that tells you we've come a long way.
That's great.
And then, of course, this is truly glass ceiling breaking. And my next quotation I stole from social media. Keep your shoes on, ladies. There's glass everywhere now that glass ceiling's been broken. I think this was really covered quite a bit by Lisa. The advantages to having a woman managing partner. Clients are demanding diversity and inclusion, and it is a hallmark of diversity and inclusion. It can be a very effective mechanism to have a female managing partner interfacing with clients in the community. But cautionary note, don't let your firm think that they have checked that box now, now that they've elected a managing partner who's a woman, and that they don't have to do anything else on diversity and inclusion because it's just one small part. And then just concluding, my last slide, that I don't think all these obstacles that we've talked about will hold anybody back. I think if you have the ability and you demonstrate it over a sustained period of time, you will gain the respect of your colleagues, which is what it takes to be a leader, is the respect of your colleagues.
You know, we talked earlier about it's so often the clients that are imposing this change, and it's not just around diversity, it's around technology, it's around a whole bunch of issues. Clients. But I would like to see more law firms doing this because it's the moral thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't take clients or the judiciary or public pressure to have us doing the right thing.
So let's jump into some questions, John, because of that. We did get a comment, interestingly enough, that let's move on from talking about clothes. Everybody on this call knows how to dress appropriately, and to some skills they want to know about leadership. So I know you would like to do a polling question.
Yeah, let me throw one in here, and then I'll share and let you run. Is your firm challenged by attracting and retaining women lawyers? Yes or no? Pretty upfront question. And Sharon, what do you think our crowd's going to say to this?
Overwhelmingly yes, because that's why they're here.
Lisa?
Yes, I think overall, absolutely, there are challenges.
And Leslie?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's about a 2-to-1. 2-to-1, interestingly.
So if you don't mind, yes, I want
to pick us up from here. And
there's two things I want to address. So I'm going to put them both out there, and then Lisa and Leslie, you can decide which one wants to address it. I think, Lisa, you were talking about flexibility. And John and I had a rousing disagreement on the word flexibility within the law practice. We were coming at it from very different ways. When you say having flexibility for the attorneys, I would like for you to be a little more specific as to what does that mean. To me, it was whatever that attorney needs for their time in their life. For him, it was you still have to bill your full 1950 hours, but you can do it in a flexible manner. So I'd like for you to address that. And then, and Leslie, if you're comfortable picking up on something else that Lisa had said, don't worry, Leslie, I have things that you said too. The diverse attorney, the clients, John said, it's disappointing that outside factors are making the law firm change. I have been in, as John said, professional development for 30 years. I was a director of D&I for a large firm for about 8 of those years. And I filled out those surveys of who was doing the work. Firms don't have that many diverse attorneys to do 30% of the work. So Leslie, I'd love for you to address, what do you do when you want a client who has these restrictions, but you don't actually have the people to fill the spots? So now that I've put it out there, I'll let Leslie think about it. Lisa, I'll come to you first. What exactly, to help our other leaders on the call, what does flexibility mean to you and to your firm, at least?
Right. Well, to me and to my firm, it means what you said, Sharon, that, you need a different circumstance because of whatever is going on in your life at that time. I am someone that came up through the ranks. I've never worked for another firm. I had my first child. I had a father who was dying of lung cancer. I had my second child, and I needed something different. And my firm said, well, why don't you work part-time? And, part-time then, as Leslie and I have discussed, was very different because it was our flexibility. At that time, I had a bag phone and I had, maybe a Commodore 128 sitting on my desk at the office. And if I wasn't at the office, I couldn't work. So I truly needed part-time. and a lot of the young women in my firm embrace part-time, but they can do it in a more flexible fashion than what I did. And so often what it means to me and my firm is reduced hours, and where you're not penalized from advancing into leadership because of that. I was still working part-time when I was elected an equity shareholder, and still working part-time when I was elected managing partner of the firm. Now, by then, I had been with my firm for 15 years, and my partners knew that, that job would probably require me to come back full-time, and sure enough, it did, and I did. But, you've just got to have that willingness to embrace the reduction in schedule, the flexibility, the part-time, whatever you want to call it, to be able to keep your talent while you have them, because that's truly what women want. Most of us went to law school because we want to make a difference. And having children or a family or parents we have to take care of, or a partner, does not mean we don't want to make a difference in our communities and at our firms. We just sometimes need flexibility, and so do men. So we have to be willing to meet them where they are and give it to them.
So before I go to Leslie, in your firm, do you have a flexibility policy, or is each case taken individually and whatever needs to be worked out is worked out for that individual?
Yes, we have a policy that we allow it, that there is absolutely no, roadblocks to being on a different type of schedule. But we take that person where we meet them. One of the things I constantly tell my partners is I abhor policies to take care of individual problems. You have to meet the problems head on where they are. And so I apply that to the reduced schedule. It depends on what that lawyer needs.
Okay, that answered one of the questions that came in is, is there a program? Is there something we need to be doing? And you're saying, yes, look at your flexibility in your hours requirements and all that. Fantastic.
Right.
Okay, so Leslie, now I'm going to jump to you. Your client's requiring diverse people to do work on your matters and you don't have them. What do you do?
Well, thanks for the heads up to be thinking about it, Sharon.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, on the question of diversity, John, you make a good point. It's client driven, but it's also the right thing to do. And I wanted to just add to that, there's an actual benefit to having diverse teams. When you bring people together to work on a client matter who have different backgrounds, different, perspectives, may be able to communicate differently with a jury. So there's an actual benefit to it. It's not just some arbitrary random thing that clients are now demanding of us. It can be challenging. I mean, we have a 35 lawyer firm in North Carolina. It can be challenging for us to attract very diverse groups of attorneys, although of course we're trying. In responding to these client requests, I think you have to be very upfront about the efforts that you're making, and they have to be tangible and demonstrable, and then just do your best to sell the diverse team that you have. If you don't have very many African Americans, but you have a large number of women equity partners, that's a strength. It's something that we all just have to keep working on, and we haven't achieved it yet. And I think that when clients see the genuine commitment and effort, that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Sharon and I were, talking about flex time and, versus part-time. And, I was trying to make the point that part-time is reduced hours from 1,800 down to 1,200.
Right.
And is there a stigma if we go to a reduced hour contribution arrangement? Can I get back on track to become, quote, full-time? Flex time, on the other hand, I think is you can do that work. I want your 1,800 quality hours. Where, when, how you get that done is up to you. So you have flexibility in that you don't have to be in the office like in the old days. Technology now affords the work at home arrangements, and firms really trying to work through where we're going to go with our hybrid model as to where people work. remotely post-COVID. Is there a stigma in your view if folks go part-time, be it a man or a woman? Have you kind of put yourself on a non-equity track and you're not all in if you choose that route?
I think that depends on the firm, John. And I think that, if there is a stigma attached, then we as leaders have to work hard to reduce that stigma or eliminate that stigma. It's a double-edged sword too. I think women have to be a little protective of themselves and take a critical eye to analyzing how much they are working. Don't be too quick to say I'm part-time just because maybe you used to bill 2,300 hours and now you're down to 1,900. Look at what the partners around you are doing before you label yourself if there might be a stigma attached. But by the same token, I've seen women over the years who were afraid there would be a stigma, so they didn't want to have the candid, transparent conversation of I need a reduction or flexibility. They just did it themselves, but then it made it look like they weren't a hard worker. So, you truly just have to look at and talk to your mentors, your sponsors, and see what your firm is about. When I was part-time, I was able to use a lot of the time that maybe I wasn't billing to be doing things I loved, marketing and business development out in the community. And so I was able to build a book of business that frankly was larger than most of the full-time people in my firm because it's what I loved and I was willing to do, but yet I was really on a reduced schedule. So it's a very individual thing that everybody has to analyze and carve out for themselves, I think.
I would like to say we have a go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say, I've heard young men talk about the stigma of asking for paternity time. I'd be the first in my firm to ever request paternity time.
Right.
And a real reluctance to do that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
That's about 5 years ago. I think nowadays most firms have paternity leave policies and all of that. So
I disagree.
Well, we do, but to John's point, I've since we've had hires for the past 7 years, I've only been able to get one young man that would take it for just the reason that John said.
They feel that there's a stigma.
Right. And another reason they've been candid with me as well is, no, are you kidding? I want to come to the office. I love coming to the office because that's where I can take my nap and get my rest. And so I'm kind of like, okay, I'll shut up. They're cheerleaders too.
Yeah. So one of the questions that came in that was asking for best tips that you can that you have found that are effective in helping move women up the ranks, which leads me to something that Leslie said before in her slide about the words. So I want to give you this scenario. I've done evaluations for 30 years. The words that are written in a female's evaluation, how does the evaluation process affect women then moving up in your firm, Leslie, or just in general? We're talking about tips and things that can help women forward. What advice can you give on the evaluation process, if firms have it, to help move them forward?
So I think it's really important to educate your evaluators in this process, because I do think there can be evaluations that if you read them without knowing who the subject is, you come to a conclusion. This must be a young woman or this must be a young man. So I think that when evaluating associates, we have to be very careful to tease that out and to say, would I be saying this about this young person if they were a different gender? And just really train the people who are doing the evaluations to be gender neutral in their evaluation, and it not just in what they write down on paper, but in their actual evaluation as they're assessing, is this person succeeding? Is this person adding value? They may be doing it in a slightly different way than their peer, but are they both adding value, perhaps in different ways? And I think there has to be encouragement along the way for all young lawyers. You know, if there's something that needs to be addressed and corrected, by all means, it should be addressed and corrected. But there also has to be encouragement, because that's how people learn the most, I believe.
Leslie, do you still find a lot of implicit bias among male lawyers at your firm within the profession?
I do, and I think it can be well-intentioned. I don't always think it's malicious or malevolent. In fact, I think it usually is not. I think sometimes it can be from a protective or paternalistic kind of point of view. And so I don't believe in calling people out or
I was going to
confronting
just
them
ask
over
you, do
every
you call
little
that
thing.
out when you see it?
Not over every little thing, but when it's needed, you can, but in a helpful way rather than an accusatory way. Because I think if people are well-intentioned, they want to learn.
Lisa,
You know,
are you sensing much of it going on within your firm and within the legal profession in your jurisdiction?
You know, my observation is like Leslie's. You know, I've heard male attorneys say after a young female may have come back from maternity leave, well, I don't want to assign this case to her. It's going to take a lot of travel, and, you know, I would hate for her to have to be away from the baby. So it's more from an empathetic or sympathetic viewpoint than it is from a, you know, putting retribution on her or trying to hold her back. And like Leslie said, I think you just have to explain to them from her viewpoint, you know, she's either got a partner or spouse, and, you know, she wants to advance, and we don't want to hold her back because she's a mother and she can stand up for herself if she can't travel. So I agree with Leslie on it. And maybe it's because we're in the South, I don't know. But that is the general demeanor I know around Nashville.
so I want to move us to another question, but we actually got two questions related to the flexibility. One was, and please address compensation, because now they're not working the hours, so please address that. And the other one was, interestingly enough, taking advantage of the flexibility. So I do want to quickly address that, but then I really would love for you, because we've had some questions, what are your tips in your leadership role, you know, in the trenches, that you would want our listening audience to know, something that you've learned, some, you know, School of Hard Knocks, whatever it is. But let's address the flexibility thing. Taking advantage and compensation. Who would like to hit that one first?
Go ahead,
Come
Leslie.
on, Leslie. I know you want in there.
I'm not sure what the taking advantage means. Is the question saying that some people are abusing the privilege?
There's no definition of what they said, but yes, I would say that I would say is what they're, yes.
Goofing off at home? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the genuinely motivated young lawyer who wants to progress and just needs a time in his or her life where they need flexibility, we should support that. I don't think they should be unduly penalized in their compensation. I think that's a penny wise, pound foolish way to approach it. I mean, if you look at somebody having a 40-year career and they need to scale back for 5 years, let them do it by all means and figure out something that works. I haven't really encountered anybody taking advantage of. I think there are people, if there is somebody like that in your organization, you don't want them in your organization.
Right. I would agree with that. I haven't had a lot of issues with people taking advantage. If they do tend to lag behind and it seems like they're not working what they should be, they typically will end up coming to the determination that, you know, maybe this schedule isn't right, we need to tweak it, or, you know, I've just decided I don't want to do this, which is unfortunate, and I try to work with them any way I can to keep them. As far as the compensation, we just reduce it proportionally. You know, we reduce their bonus goals proportionally so they can still get a bonus at the end of the year for the work they've put in. And we reduce their base salary proportionally. And that you know, and then for equity shareholders, females who are part-time or reduced hours, which we have several in my firm, you know, it just goes into the formula. So you work less, you collect less, sometimes you originate less, sometimes you don't. If you still have a huge book of business, you still get the full credit for what you originate. So it works out. It really does. And I would be happy to speak with anybody that has questions about how we do that.
Sharon, let me jump in here. We got 2 more audience polling questions, and we're starting to near the top of the hour. I told you the time would fly by, and it always does, but people love this data. And let me ask this one before we forget, and is whether or not your firm has a formal diversity and inclusion initiative in place. The inclusion piece has really gotten popular, it seems, in the past couple of years. But do we have that program in place? Sharon, this is right in your wheelhouse. What do you think our crowd here has to say about these sorts of initiatives? They got them going on or no?
Yeah, I'm hoping that 75% or more say they have some type of initiative. That's my hope.
Beautiful. And let me go ahead and close that. And we are right at 50-50. 50-50. I think this is something firms should work on in a deliberate, proactive way. And it just doesn't happen because you want it to. It takes work. It takes champions. And if you don't already have those role models within your firms, I think it takes that senior level old white guy who gets it and is passionate and does it for the right reasons. And I look to Sharon, our friend in Miami, John Kozak, who's just a living example of a white senior lawyer who feels passionately about diversity in the legal profession. And his firm is doing so many things to support that and empower that. One more question, and then that is whether or not your firm will accommodate part-time equity partners. Yes or no? And I hear from many firms, no. If you're going to be an owner of this place, you're all in. You can't part-time that. And Sharon, I'll ask for your prediction on this one. Do you think most of the firms, smaller, mid-sized firms on today's call, do have, part-time equity partners? Yes or no?
I think because this is a group that self-selected to attend this program, that again, I would like to believe that 75% or more will accommodate part-time equity partners because that's their goal, part of their diversity initiative. That's what I would like to see.
Leslie, your prediction?
I would like to say that I think it's going to be that high, but I don't think it's going to be that high, Sharon, unfortunately.
And how about you, Lisa Cole?
I think I agree with Leslie on this. Nothing against you, Sharon. I love you.
And Sharon, unfortunately, I do think larger firms are farther along the AmLaw 200 at embracing these sorts of things and working it into their cultures, their policies and procedures than smaller and mid-sized law firms. That's just my observation.
But this is more than 50%. So, I mean, to me, that is really, really good news. Good news.
Excellent.
I'll go with that for sure. All right, I would love to hear your #1 tips of, whatever it is, if it's attached to a story, just some aha moment that you were like, yep, I know I'm in charge, so that you can help all the women that are listening. Leslie, we'll go with you first.
Okay. Just don't skip over building a base of being an excellent lawyer. So start with that. I mean, learn how to be an excellent lawyer. If you agree to do something, do it well. We tend as women to overcommit because we know we can multitask. And also these days, this is a good thing. We're frequently asked, we need a woman on this panel. Will you do this? Will you do that? And if you agree to do it, you have to do an excellent job. And then I think you need to find your own persona. You know, I grew up as a young lawyer working mostly with male partners, and I could never be the person that they were in the courtroom. I had to find my own voice, my own presentation manner, my own way of making sure that I was heard without being shrill or any of those other, you know, voice words we talked about earlier. And a lot of that just takes time and experience. But I think if you focus on doing an excellent job consistently and making sure that you are heard in the situations where you find yourself, whether it's a courtroom or a partner meeting or whatever other setting, those are kind of the building blocks of being a leader as a lawyer, in my view.
Leslie? Oh, Lisa. See, I did it, John. Lisa.
They're both L's. It's easy.
Yeah,
Leslie
right.
and Lisa are pretty close.
They're so similar.
They are.
Actually, I have so many tips, and I know that Leslie does too. We could probably fill the hour with nothing but, you know, our hacks for existing in these roles. I would say, you know, disabuse yourself of the notion that everybody's going to like you and agree with you. You have to be willing to, as we often say in mediation, no one leaves happy. So you have to be willing to be the bad guy if you need to. To another one of Leslie's points, I am a huge consensus builder. I spend an inordinate amount of time with my partners, talking to them, listening to them, and developing a relationship with them, which I truly have with most 115 lawyers in my firm. And so it takes a lot of time and effort, but because of that, they know me well, they know I'm fair, they know I'm firm, they know I'm consistent. And I think that helps to build trust. So I think that is one of the most important things, and time well spent is to build that consensus and those relationships. And just again, like I said, and this kind of goes to the building consensus and one-on-one, you know, don't just find a list of policies that you want to enact. Figure out what works best for your firm and what works best for each individual lawyer, and don't be afraid to tackle the problems head on, because it will build respect for yourself. People may not like it at first, but as women, we have to build respect for ourselves. Despite my blonde hair, I've had to, you know, convince people all my life that, you know, I can work just as hard and I'm just as bright. And so we just have to do the things to overcome any of those implicit biases that Leslie had mentioned.
You know, you said it early, we're not running a popularity contest. We're the CEOs of multi-million-dollar enterprises, and we have to make tough decisions from time to time for the long-term success of the organization. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that means taking a stand and standing up to it and doing the right thing for the right reasons. And people do, I think, start to, you know, build confidence in you. And the fact that you are willing to make decisive decisions, make controversial decisions, get things done. Mm-hmm. Sharon?
I am out of questions. There are no more questions that came in. I would love for us to talk about resources or, yep, okay. There, that was a good segue, right?
Yes, I anticipated that one.
So, for those of you, you know, we know in an hour we haven't been able to answer all of your questions, but you are not alone in your attempt as a managing partner or an up-and-coming leader in your firm to do this alone. Obviously, the ABA has their women in the profession. They have lots of within all diversity, they have lots of reports and information if you need to build a business case to create a non-equity path or part-time equity partners. They have data and information there. The Association of Legal Administrators, a lot of managing partners are not familiar with this group. John and I are extremely active in this group, and they have a diversity toolkit, which you can just download. Your administrator or HR person is probably a member of that group, so I would reach out to them. And the ALFDP, and I have to literally look at this, it's the Association of Law Firm Diversity Professionals. I can never remember what it stands for. These are people who work in law firms in the area of D&I. They have resources there. If you're looking to hire someone, that's a great place to find people. The LCLD is the Leadership Council for Diversity. Your firm can join. Your managing partner is who goes to these meetings, and you are with clients and future clients, and it's an amazing event. I had the privilege of going a couple of years ago. It's a great organization, and they do training for diverse attorneys, so that's really good. LMA, that's a marketing group that John has been very active in a lot of years. They also have a resource. And NAL, the National Association of Women Lawyers, obviously. And there, I could have filled up, 3 pages.
Oh yeah, there's a group called, who knew, the National Association of Minority and Women-Owned Law Firms, NAMWOLF.
Yeah.
That if you are a woman-owned law firm, majority or diversity, here's a group you might want to check out. It's amazing what's out there when you go looking for it. Sharon's a great resource. We try to provide those resources through the Managing Partner Forum. Leslie, if you were to direct a young female lawyer at your firm to join one organization, you've been involved in so many over the years. What organization might you point this young lady toward?
Well, I will put in a plug for the LCLD, which law firms have to join, not young female attorneys. But we are a member of it and have found it very beneficial. But I would encourage her to join an organization that is in the area that she wants to practice in. Like in my firm, it might be the IADC or the FDCC. And just use that as an opportunity to develop skills, leadership, profile, clients, and not necessarily join a diversity-focused organization just for the purpose of diversity.
Okay, that's good advice. And Lisa, where would you advise a young lawyer joining your firm wanting to ascend to the leadership ranks? If you had to pick one organization, where would you send them?
Well, I think the LCLD is also great. I think that National Association of Women Lawyers is fabulous. I have been most involved in the ABA in their women's lawyers profession, the practice areas, and then also just in the managing partners portion of the ABA. So I have found great resources there, and you can meet lawyers all across the country.
Well, I think, Sharon, we are really wanting to get in. I was very excited when we started conceiving this program, specific to women in leadership and in the law. And I think this may be the tip of the iceberg for some things we do in terms of conferencing and resources to help equip women and minorities, which for a challenging role for anybody. But I think we're onto something here. And Leslie and Lisa, thank you so much for being part of our program today. We are being recorded, and we will share this live on-demand recording in our newsletter, as well as some handouts. And we're going to include our slide deck, the polling information we collected. We've been dispensing this guidance to managing partners, particularly since COVID's hit. We've talked about a lot of these things today. And it's not gender specific. This applies to leaders across the board. Each of our panelists has agreed to carry forth the conversation. If you'd like to reach out to them through email, through phone number, Leslie, so kind, I put the master, direct dial number to her firm. She says, no, John, I want my direct dial number in there. That's how important. This topic is to each of us. So please avail yourself to Lisa and Leslie and Sharon. I don't think you've heard the last from them. So want to thank everybody for being here today. Sharon, anything you want to say to take us home?
I just want to thank our 2 managing partners, which is the first word, not women or female managing partner, but managing partner, which is the key piece to all of this. You've achieved what, you know, a lot of lawyers would like to achieve, and you've done it, and you did it with high heels on. So we have a lot to learn from both of you, and I look forward to doing another panel with you in the future. So thank you.
We would love it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Great to have you with
everybody.
us. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you again soon, hopefully in person.
Right.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
I don't know how to log off.
I think I figured it out. There's a little X.
You and I are stuck with each other.
There's a little
By
X
the
at the.
way, I'm quoting you in my article,
Okay,
my survey, but you'll see when I'm going to quote you. You'll get a chance to look at it before.
perfect. All right.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.
We
See you
got to
soon.
log out here in a minute.
Okay.